Hello everybody, here we are today and we are going to be continuing on with our season previews as today we're covering the Florida Panthers. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So the Florida Panthers had arguably their best season in franchise history, as it was just the second time they were able to make it to the Stanley Cup final after just barely squeaking into the playoffs going into the postseason. So yeah, obviously a really good year when things didn't look like they would be a good year. And with that being said, what are some storylines to talk about for this season? So the first thing is going to be, can it be done from within? So the Panthers obviously have some bigger contracts that are holding them back from going out and making some aggressive moves, and they, kind of went out in the offseason and did some things that were interesting. Obviously, they traded away some guys, and then they did bring in some other guys. You have Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He is a little bit of a gamble, but is somebody that maybe if things click for them, especially on the blue line with things how they're looking right now, that could be a good thing. Then you have a guy like Evan Rodriguez, which is somebody that everybody seems to be excited for. Every season preview that you look at is talking about how they're really hoping that he can be a good piece for them. But I wanted to talk about one guy in mind that I really would like to see step up. And this is a true from within guy, that being Anton Lundell. Lundell was a top 15 pick for the Panthers not too long ago. And so far, I don't think he's been terrible by any stretch of the imagination, but they definitely could use him and kind of hope to see some growth for him. So a guy that's young, he's 22 years old, and kind of seen as one of the better prospects or younger players for the Panthers. The Athletic.com has the Panthers ranked as the 23rd best prospect pool. They have the 23rd best prospect pool, and that probably means you're not going to get to see a lot of game-changing talent come from your prospects, which means if you don't have a lot of money to spend, you're going to have to see guys be developed on the roster and see a lot of coaching and things like that. So with Lundell being one of those guys that are expected to make an impact and being young, you like to see him do well in a third-line role this year, maybe more. The good thing about it is he doesn't really have to be thrust in a top six role right now with the guys that are in front of him. So I really am hoping that this year could be a year we see maybe a mini breakthrough, see him get some more minutes. I think he averages about 16 minutes a night. He was a guy that forechecked a lot for him, didn't recover a bunch of dump ins, but just to see him all around improve and provide some depth, especially in forward group, and be a positive asset and say, oh, this was a really good year for him, would be just a great thing for this team. Again, with the way that this roster is set up right now, and with, the fact that some of these picks that they had to trade away when they had that President's Trophy run and stuff like that, they really could use some young faces to step up. Lundell being one of those guys, and with the expectations maybe on him and some other younger guys that are already on the roster, you're hoping that they can kind of keep the things rolling, as the momentum the past 2 years for the Panthers has been on their side. The second talking point is, can they carry the momentum from last season into this season? So the Panthers were, on the outside looking in for the playoffs towards the back stretch of the year. Then they won 6 games in a row. They go into the first round. They're down 3-1 against the President's Trophy winning Boston Bruins, who are off to a historic start to their season, looking to end with a championship. They rally back from that. They win a Game 7 in Boston. They go on to the second round where they play the Maple Leafs, a team that had not made it to the second round since 2004. A very good side that, felt like they had a breakthrough opportunity and were looking to be a favorite to march on to the Eastern Conference Final. They beat them, I think, in 5 games. Then the Panthers go into the conference final where you have the Hurricanes, again, kind of licking their chops, being a heavy favorite, and, hoping to make their first Stanley Cup final appearance since 2006. The Panthers keep things close, and guess what? They sweep the Hurricanes. Eventually, though, you would see them run out of momentum as they would go on to play the Vegas Golden Knights. You all know how that final game ended there. That was not fun to watch. I did not really watch, especially the third period. I could care less, as neither team I was invested in. I did watch, towards the final minutes, but with it being a bloodbath, that was just unfortunate. But the point remains that they were able to play do-or-die hockey for a very long time. They had to claw their way into the playoffs, no pun intended with them being the Panthers, but marched their way on into the final. And this is a team that just the season prior had won the President's Trophy and made it to the second round. Things are different. This feels like a different club in terms of the optimism, I guess. This is not a team that, is a lock to be top 3 in the division, I think, on a year-in, year-out basis. But compared to some teams in the later 2010s for the Panthers, to see them make it to the playoffs back-to-back years and then also win in the series is great. Actually, they made it more than 2 years in a row, but they were able to win, against Capitals in the first round a couple years ago and then go on this run. You really want to see if this third season could be something, because now you're looking at consistent success and things are great. The only thing I will say is you do worry a little bit about just having the energy to do that. They did face some bangs and bruises along the way to the Cup, and then also it's a lot easier to say, guys, if we just look at these final 10 games and we get the job done, we are going to be in the playoffs, compared to if you get into a slow start and then you look at the standings and say, oh my gosh, we've got 65 games left and we got to try to catch up ground. That could be a difference. The good news is here, the Panthers didn't have long losing streaks. The longest of the year was 4. However, I will say, with that bad spell, that 4-game losing streak, there's a couple 3-game losing streaks sandwiched around there about the same time. So again, looking at that and saying, well, it's not that long of a losing streak. You sandwich in a 3-game losing streak here, 3-game losing streak there, 4-game losing streak in the middle, something like that. And you're looking right there at, possibly winning 2 of 12 or something like that. So I am curious to see how things start off for them this year, because, they faced a lot of adversity towards the back end of that season and were able to, ride the highs, but is there going to be a low coming in? And then the final talking point here is, will the duo in net be good enough for the Panthers? So obviously, Florida has one of the more intriguing duos, I guess you want to say, in Sergei Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight. Now, Bob, of course, was signed to a huge 8-year deal with the team, brought him over after a good stint with the Blue Jackets, and then things, for the most part, weren't particularly great. But then he had a good year where they won the President's Trophy and then, was able to help them all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. And he's kind of interesting. I will say his final 8 games of the season did not look good for the regular season. .871 save percentage. And, they are hoping that's not going to be the case. Because if you're posting an .871 save percentage on the season, that's not going to be good. I will say they would really love to see him get back to that 2021-2022 season where he had almost 40 wins, had something like a .913, .914 save percentage, and could help them go on a run. Is he probably going to be their starter this year? Yeah, it was another season where we saw him play 50 games, and he is a guy that has a lot of experience, has been able to win a lot of games for teams, has been able to win Vezina. He just has been able to do that all while making a pretty penny, especially now here in Florida. With the money he's making, it's hard to imagine him being thrown off that pedestal a little bit, but he's got 3 years left on his deal. I think this is one of those 3 years. So for him to play and hopefully go out on a good note, if he retires at the end of this, would be really nice. Again, he is older. He's getting up there into the mid to late 40s, or not 40s, 30s. If he's in the mid to late 40s, it'd be really impressive. But to hopefully see him have another good year, even if it comes down to the playoffs, would be nice, because I do think that the beginning of his legacy with the team was atrocious, but these past 2 years have done a lot to patch that up. And then with Spencer Knight, a guy that is young, former first-round pick for them, he is someone that I'm really hoping can get off to the right foot this year. He obviously missed a good chunk of last year, ended up coming out that he had OCD that was severely impacting his life and how he was living it. And while I don't have OCD or anything like that, I have a family member that has it, and I can understand just how debilitating it is for people, where it can really just get in the way of you doing just simple things because your mind, has to do things a certain way. So to see him get treated and feel like he is excited to get back out on the ice is great for him, because, that is something that it just can take over your life. So to see him now this year, I just want to be able to see the first round pick go out there and maybe even get a chance to take the starting role from Bob, not in a mean way, but I'm a young guy, I'm starting to get some momentum and all that. I will say it is going to be interesting because he had some games where he got rocked, didn't play a lot of games. I know there's a game against the Bruins that really probably impacted his stats. Allowed something like 7 goals in that game. Had another game, like second to last game of the year, where he allowed 5 goals. So all in all, there's still a verdict out there about what he can provide for the team in terms of on-ice product. But I will say they did just give him an extension. I think it was a 3-year deal. So you would like to see him be a good goalie, even if it's a backup goalie, to say, well, this is where he's at right now, getting his footing from underneath him, or getting his footing there, and just trying to gain confidence in between the pipes, as he should, or hopefully is, the goalie of the future. Because again, Bob's old, got 3 years left on his deal. If things go poorly, even if, he still wants to play with the team, they very well might not sign him. So you'd like to know that Knight could be your guy for yourself in the club going forward for maybe even long-term future. So overall, what are my thoughts for the Panthers going into this season? They are a team that is looking to win a playoff series for the third straight year, which would be really cool. And I am hoping that they can at least be competitive. However, I will say this, they are not nearly as good as they were a couple years ago. And they are a club that is really going to have to rely on some top-end pieces to carry the load. You're looking at guys like Barkov, guys like Kachuk. There's other players as well that will have to, probably have good years. But my worry is I realistically could see guys like Barkov and Kachuk and Reinhardt, etc. have good years, but they still miss the playoffs. The blue line and other pieces are obviously dealing with a lot of injuries from the playoffs. It's been a talking point for a lot of people going into this season. You don't know what you're going to get with Bob. You don't know what you're going to get with Knight. And you are kind of wondering, with some of these gambles they took, will they pay off? I do hope that they are in the hunt for the playoffs by the end of the year. But I could see a year where some of these guys have career years or just really good years, but they don't make it. But anyway, what are your thoughts for the Panthers going into this season? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.